Some people should really learn where they belong. Rebecca Whitmore said it loud enough for the entire ballroom to hear. Her voice slipped through the music like a knife wrapped in silk. The chandeliers glittered above a room full of donors, executives, politicians, heirs, and people who had spent their whole lives confusing wealth with worth. Cameras flashed near the stage. Champagne glasses floated through the crowd. A string quartet played something delicate near the marble columns. Then Rebecca tilted her glass. Deep red wine spilled across Vanessa Cole's ivory dress. It moved slowly down the fabric, blooming like a wound. For 1 second, the ballroom reacted exactly the way Rebecca expected. A few people laughed. Not loudly. Not honestly. Just enough to show allegiance. A man near the auction table smirked into his glass. A woman in diamonds lifted her brows as if Vanessa's humiliation had confirmed something she had already believed. 2 junior partners from Whitmore Capital looked away, smiling like cowards. Vanessa did not move. She did not gasp. She did not reach for a napkin. She did not step back. She simply stood there, calm and straight, her hands relaxed at her sides, her eyes steady beneath the soft gold light. The stain spread across her dress, but somehow it was Rebecca who began to look exposed. Rebecca smiled. "Oh, I am so sorry," she said, her tone making sure everyone knew she was not. "I thought this was a private event." Another small wave of laughter moved through the room. This time, it was weaker. Because Vanessa's silence had changed something. There are moments when outrage makes a room loud. And there are moments when dignity makes a room afraid. Vanessa Cole had learned long ago that people who wanted to reduce you needed noise. They needed you shaken. They needed your pain to perform for them. She gave them nothing. Her gaze moved slowly across the ballroom. Not at the stain. Not at Rebecca. At the witnesses. She saw the man by the bar who had recognized her and quickly looked down. She saw the board member near the floral arch who suddenly found the floor interesting. She saw a young server freeze with a tray in his hands, his jaw tight, anger rising in his eyes. She saw a black woman in a navy gown near the back press her lips together as if holding back a sentence she had carried for years. Vanessa saw everything. She always did. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Vanessa. Rebecca lifted her glass again, still performing. I mean, no offense, but some tables are reserved for actual patrons. The word actual landed harder than the wine. Vanessa finally looked at her. Not with anger. With precision. You're right, Vanessa said. The music seemed to soften by itself. This is a private event. Rebecca's smile flickered. It lasted less than a second, but Vanessa caught it. So did the man in the tuxedo near the east wall, the one pretending not to know exactly who Vanessa was. His name was Martin Hale, Chief Operations Officer of the Cole Foundation. He had been standing still since the wine fell, waiting for the smallest signal. Vanessa gave it. Not a wave. Not a command. Just 2 fingers lowered slightly near her side. Martin moved. Quietly. Purposefully. Rebecca didn't notice him at first. She was too busy enjoying the scene she thought she had created. You know, Rebecca continued, voice sweet and poisonous, there are staff entrances for a reason. The young server with the tray inhaled sharply. A murmur moved through the room. Vanessa's expression did not change. At 38, Vanessa Cole had built one of the most powerful private equity and technology investment firms in the country. She had acquired failing companies, rebuilt them, saved thousands of jobs, and quietly funded scholarships, clinics, legal defense networks, and housing projects in cities most of the people in that ballroom only mentioned during fundraising speeches. But tonight, she had arrived without a public introduction. No entourage. No diamond necklace. No security detail walking 2 steps behind her. Just an ivory dress, a small clutch, and a calm that people often mistook for permission. That was their mistake. Rebecca Whitmore was still smiling when Martin reached the edge of the crowd. His posture had changed. The easy politeness was gone. In its place stood the kind of controlled urgency that made powerful people uncomfortable. He stopped behind Vanessa. "Ms. Cole," he said. 2 words. Respectful. Clear. Unmistakable. The room shifted. The people who knew the name reacted first. A donor near the silent auction table went still. A woman from the city council turned her head so fast her earrings flashed. Someone whispered, "Cole," and another answered, "Vanessa Cole." Rebecca heard it. Her eyes narrowed. Vanessa did not turn around. She didn't need to. Martin lowered his voice, but not enough to hide it. "The board packet is ready. We are waiting on your authorization." Rebecca blinked. "The board," she said, trying to laugh. "What board?" Vanessa looked at the wine stain on her dress for the first time. Then back at Rebecca. "The one you should have read about before you touched me." The sentence did not raise its voice. It did not need to. The ballroom went quieter than any room that size should have been. Rebecca recovered fast. People like her always did at first. They were trained from birth to fall back on posture when truth got too close. "I don't know what game you're playing," Rebecca said, "but this is embarrassing." Vanessa stepped forward half an inch. "No," she said. "This is documentation." At that word, the first screen changed. There were 8 large digital displays around the ballroom, designed to show donor names, auction items, and polished videos of smiling children whose struggles had been turned into elegant gala material. One by one, the screens flickered. The string quartet stopped playing. A few guests turned. The first display went black. Then white text appeared. Cole Equity Foundation Annual Governance Event Private Investor Disclosure Session. The murmur became a wave. Rebecca turned toward the closest screen. "What is this?" Vanessa's voice stayed calm. "Clarity." The second screen lit up. A list of major donors appeared. Then ownership structures. Then voting rights. Then Foundation Oversight Authority. Then the name at the top. Of the controlling trust. Vanessa E. Cole, founder, chairwoman, majority governing trustee. A champagne glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered near the marble bar. Nobody moved to clean it. Rebecca stared at the screen as if the letters had insulted her personally. "This is not possible," she said. Vanessa looked at her with almost gentle disbelief. "People say that when they confuse not knowing with not existing." Martin stepped closer. "Ms. Cole, the incident has been logged. Security footage from Ballroom A, West Camera, South Balcony, and Stage Left has been preserved." Rebecca's face tightened. "Security footage," she repeated. Vanessa said nothing. She let the room answer for her. Phones began to rise. Not as a mob. As witnesses. A young woman near the back whispered, "I got all of it." A man near the donor wall lowered his glass and stepped away from Rebecca as if her cruelty had become contagious. The server with the tray finally set it down, his hands shaking. Rebecca saw the movement. The distance forming around her. And for the first time, her smile disappeared completely. "This is absurd," she said. "I made a joke." "No," Vanessa said. "You made an assumption." Rebecca's grip tightened around her empty glass. "You walked in here looking like..." She stopped. That pause condemned her more than the sentence ever could. Vanessa tilted her head. "Finish it." No one breathed. Rebecca looked around, searching for support, but support had become dangerous now. The people who laughed seconds earlier were suddenly studying the ceiling, their cuffs, their shoes, anything except the woman they had encouraged. Vanessa waited. Rebecca swallowed. I didn't know who you were, she said finally. Vanessa's eyes hardened. That was the point. The words landed like a closing door. Because every person in that ballroom understood what she meant. Respect that depends on recognition is not respect. It is calculation. Courtesy offered only to power is not kindness. It is fear in formal wear. Rebecca lowered her glass. You set me up. Vanessa almost smiled. No. I entered my own gala. You revealed yourself. That was when another voice cut through the room. Vanessa. Everyone turned. Charles Whitmore, Rebecca's father, moved through the crowd with the careful speed of a man watching millions of dollars catch fire in real time. He was silver-haired, polished, and deeply practiced in the art of smiling through catastrophe. He reached Rebecca's side and gave her one look. Not concern. Calculation. Then he turned to Vanessa. Miss Cole, he said carefully. I'm sure this is a misunderstanding. Vanessa looked at him. Charles. The way she said his name stripped it of status. He smiled tighter. Rebecca can be impulsive. Rebecca whispered, Dad. He ignored her. This is an important evening, Charles continued. We're all here for the same cause. Perhaps we can handle this privately. Vanessa let the word privately hang between them. Privately was where men like Charles moved damage. Privately was where apologies got traded for silence. Privately was where patterns survived. No, Vanessa said. Charles' smile thinned. No. This happened publicly. It will be answered publicly. The third screen changed. This time, it displayed internal emails. Not all of them. Just subject lines. Dates. Names. Enough. Whitmore Capital, Donor Access Priority Event Seating Adjustments Concerns Regarding Optics Re Cole Foundation Diversity Pressure Re Keep Her Symbolic, Not Operational. The room inhaled as one body. Charles went pale beneath his tan. Rebecca looked confused. What is that? Vanessa did not look away from Charles. That, she said, is why I came without an introduction. Martin stepped forward with a tablet. The governance review began 6 weeks ago. External counsel has verified correspondence between Whitmore Capital, 2 foundation board members, and event staff. A board member near the floral arch tried to move backward. Vanessa's eyes found him immediately. Don't leave, Gerald. Gerald Price froze. The room turned toward him. He smiled weakly. Vanessa, I was just standing exactly where you stood when they questioned my authority in March, Vanessa said. And again in May. And again when you approved a donor seating structure that moved black founders away from the front tables unless they had celebrity recognition. A low sound moved through the room. Not outrage yet. Recognition. Because some people in that ballroom had felt it. They had noticed which guests were guided toward the center and which were placed near the exits. They had noticed whose names were announced with full titles and whose achievements were shortened. They had noticed. They had simply been taught to call noticing bitterness. Vanessa turned slightly toward the crowd. My dress is not the issue, she said. The wine is not the issue. Rebecca is not even the issue. Rebecca flinched. The issue is a room that laughs before it asks who is being harmed. Silence. Then the black woman in the navy gown stepped forward. My name is Dr. Simone Avery, she said, voice steady but trembling underneath. I donated $2 million to the Community Health Initiative last year. At this event, a staff member asked if I was with catering. A few people looked down. Simone continued, stronger now. When I reported it, I was told the staff was overwhelmed. Vanessa nodded once. Your complaint was buried. Simone's eye sharpened. By whom? The fourth screen answered. Complaint resolution summary filed by Dr. Simone Avery. Status, dismissed. Reviewer, Gerald Price. Note, donor sensitivity issue. No escalation recommended. Gerald whispered, "That's taken out of context." Vanessa turned to him. There is no context where dignity becomes inconvenient. Applause began somewhere near the back. One person. Then another. Charles raised his hand. "Let's not turn this into theater." Vanessa looked at him, and the room felt the temperature drop. "Theater is what you built. I brought the lights." Martin tapped the tablet. The screens changed again. This time, financial flows appeared. Consulting fees. Advisory retainers. Event vendor contracts. Donations routed through preferred firms connected to Whitmore Capital. Charles stopped breathing correctly. Rebecca looked at her father. "Dad." Vanessa spoke before he could. For 3 years, Whitmore Capital used foundation access to redirect community development funds through private vendor networks. Not illegal enough to scare you. Not clean enough to survive. Daylight. Charles's voice lowered. "Careful." Vanessa stepped closer. "No. You be careful." The words cracked through the ballroom. For the first time all night, Vanessa's voice carried force. Not volume. Force. The kind that comes from years of swallowing fire and finally deciding the room can burn instead. You watched me build this foundation from nothing. You smiled in photographs beside children whose schools you underfunded through delays. You praised diversity in public and questioned black leadership in private. You treated my name like branding, my presence like decoration, and my authority like a rumor. Her eyes moved to Rebecca. And your daughter thought she was insulting a stranger. Vanessa turned back to Charles. She learned that from somewhere. The room erupted. Not loud enough to become chaos. Just enough to break the old order. Charles leaned in, voice tight. "You don't want a war with my family." Vanessa did smile then. Small. Cold. Final. "Charles, I bought your war before breakfast." Nobody understood the sentence at first. Then Martin touched the tablet again. The fifth screen changed. Whitmore Capital Emergency Acquisition Notice Majority Debt Position Transferred Controlling Interest Pending Enforcement Lead Acquirer, Cole Meridian Holdings. Rebecca whispered. No. Charles stared at the screen like a man watching his house sink into the sea. Vanessa's voice returned to calm. Your firm overleveraged itself trying to look stronger than it was. You used foundation proximity to attract investors while hiding liquidity stress. 3 weeks ago, your creditors sold the debt. Charles's mouth opened. Vanessa finished it for him. To me. The ballroom went still. Not quiet. Still. The kind of stillness that happens when power changes hands and everyone hears the lock click. Rebecca took a step back. The wine stain on Vanessa's dress no longer looked like humiliation. It looked like evidence. Charles's voice cracked slightly. You can't enforce tonight. I already have. Martin looked up. Notice was delivered to Whitmore Capital at 7:42 p.m. Voting control transferred at 8:03. Executive authority suspended at 8:06. Mr. Whitmore's access to foundation accounts and affiliated investment channels has been revoked. Rebecca looked at her father. Tell them he's lying. Charles said nothing. And that silence told the truth better than any document could. Gerald Price tried again. Vanessa, we should convene the board. Vanessa turned slowly. We are convened. The lights above the stage shifted. At the front of the ballroom, the central screen displayed a live video feed. 3 external trustees appeared. An attorney. A compliance officer. 2 community representatives. All watching. One of the trustees, an older black man named Ellis Monroe, leaned toward his camera. Ms. Cole, quorum is confirmed. Emergency Governance Authority is active. A gasp moved through the guests. Vanessa nodded. Thank you, Ellis. Charles looked around, realizing the room had not become a courtroom. It had always been one. He just hadn't known he was on trial. Rebecca's voice shrank. "Vanessa, I didn't know." Vanessa looked at her. For the first time, something like sadness moved across her face. Not sympathy. Memory. She remembered being 22, wearing a thrift blazer to a funding meeting, sitting across from a man who asked if she was there to take notes. She remembered being 28, closing her first acquisition while the seller congratulated her male assistant. She remembered being 31, entering a private club for a negotiation and being directed toward the service elevator. She remembered every smile that asked her to prove herself without saying the words. She remembered her mother smoothing her collar before scholarship interviews and saying, "Baby, don't let them make you loud just to prove you're alive." So Vanessa had learned silence. But silence was never surrender. It was storage. And tonight, every stored thing had arrived with interest. Rebecca's eyes shone now, but Vanessa did not soften. "You didn't know who I was," Vanessa said. "But you knew who you thought I was." Rebecca lowered her head. The young server stepped forward suddenly, voice shaking. "I need to say something." Everyone turned. He looked terrified, but he kept going. "My name is Malik Johnson. I've worked 3 foundation events this year. Staff were told certain guests needed extra observation. Every time, it was black guests, Latino guests, younger guests, anyone not dressed like old money." The event manager near the stage whispered, "Malik, don't." Vanessa's eyes moved to her. "Let him speak." Malik swallowed. Tonight, before doors opened, Ms. Whitmore told 2 staff members to keep an eye on unverified guests near the donor tables. Then she pointed at a photo of Ms. Cole from the guest list. Rebecca's face drained. "That is not true." Malik reached into his pocket and lifted his phone. "I recorded the briefing because I was tired." The room broke open. Not with shouting. With truth. Martin looked at Vanessa. "Permission to play the audio?" Vanessa held Rebecca's gaze. "Play it." Malik's phone connected to the ballroom system. Rebecca's voice filled the room. "If they don't look like they belong, redirect them. I don't care what the list says. These events attract climbers." Then laughter. Then another voice, the event manager's. "What about Vanessa Cole? She's marked private arrival." Rebecca again. "Please. If she shows, someone will point her out. Until then, don't let every random woman in a discount dress wander near the donor circle." The audio stopped. No one moved. Rebecca looked naked in the silence. The event manager began crying. Charles closed his eyes. Vanessa looked at Malik. "Thank you." Malik nodded, tears in his own eyes. "I just wanted someone to know." "We know now," Vanessa said. Then she turned toward the live board feed. "Ellis, enter the audio into the record." Entered. Enter the video of the wine incident. Entered. Enter the financial disclosures. Entered. Vanessa faced the ballroom. "Now we move." Charles stepped forward. "Vanessa, think carefully. A public scandal will hurt the foundation." "No," Vanessa said. "The scandal hurt the foundation. The truth protects it." Rebecca wiped at her face. "I'm sorry." Vanessa looked at the stain on her dress. Then at Rebecca's empty glass. Then at the room. Apology is not a broom. It does not sweep away what you meant. Rebecca's lips trembled. Vanessa continued. "You humiliated me because you believed the room would help you. And for a moment, it did." That sentence turned the mirror outward. Several guests looked stricken. "Good," Vanessa thought. "Let them." A woman near the front spoke softly. "I laughed." Vanessa looked at her. The woman's face crumpled. "I'm sorry. I don't even know why I did it." Vanessa's answer was quiet. Yes, you do. The woman began to cry. Vanessa did not comfort her. This night was not built for the comfort of people discovering their reflection. The central screen flickered as Ellis Monroe adjusted his papers. "Miss Cole," he said, "the emergency motions are ready." Vanessa turned fully toward the stage. Her dress was ruined. Her posture was not. "Proceed." Ellis read from the document. Motion 1. Immediate removal of Gerald Price from the Cole Equity Foundation Board for suppression of discrimination complaints, misuse of donor classification authority, and breach of fiduciary responsibility. Gerald stepped forward. "Vanessa, please." She didn't look at him. "All in favor?" On the screen, hands rose. In the room, 2 board members reluctantly raised theirs after seeing Vanessa's gaze move toward them. "Motion passes," Ellis said. Gerald seemed to shrink inside his tuxedo. Motion 2, Ellis continued. Termination of Whitmore Capital's advisory relationship with the Foundation and all affiliated community investment vehicles. Charles snapped, "You are making a mistake." Vanessa finally turned back to him. "No. I am ending one." "All in favor?" Hands rose. Motion passes. Rebecca covered her mouth. Motion 3, referral of financial conduct, vendor routing, and donor influence activity to external legal counsel and regulatory review. Charles' composure cracked. "You vindictive little," he stopped himself too late. The room heard enough. Vanessa walked toward him. Every step was slow. The crowd parted without being asked. When she reached him, she stopped close enough that he had to look down slightly, but somehow he seemed smaller. "You spent years mistaking patience for permission," she said. "That ends tonight." Charles whispered, "You'll destroy people." "No," Vanessa said. "I'm removing the people who were comfortable destroying others quietly." Ellis's voice came from the screen. "All in favor?" Hands rose. Motion passes. The applause came stronger now. But Vanessa raised one hand. It stopped. She did not want applause yet. Applause was easy after power had shifted. She was more interested in what people did before it was safe. Her gaze moved to the guests. Some of you watched what happened and said nothing. The room held its breath. Some of you laughed. Some of you looked away. Some of you waited to see whether I mattered before deciding whether Rebecca was wrong. No one interrupted. Remember that feeling in your stomach right now. That is not humiliation. That is your conscience arriving late. A few people bowed their heads. Vanessa turned toward Malik. "Mr. Johnson, are you employed by the event contractor?" "Yes." "Not anymore." Malik froze. Vanessa's expression softened for the first time. "As of tonight, you are employed by the Cole Equity Foundation as Assistant Coordinator for Ethics and Guest Experience, if you want the role. Full benefits. Salary review Monday. And no one will ever threaten your job for telling the truth again." Malik covered his mouth. The applause returned before Vanessa could stop it. This time, she let it. Dr. Simone Avery stepped forward, eyes wet. "Vanessa, what about the buried complaints?" Vanessa turned to Martin. "All of them reopened tonight." Martin nodded. "Already queued." Vanessa addressed the room. "Every complaint filed in the last 5 years will be reviewed by an independent panel. Every donor, guest, vendor, employee, and applicant who was dismissed, minimized, or labeled difficult for reporting bias will receive a direct response. Not a statement. Not a template. A response." The applause deepened. Rebecca stood alone now. No one near her. Not even her father. That was the part she seemed to feel most. People like Rebecca believed cruelty created belonging. But cruelty only builds circles until the center collapses. She looked at Vanessa. "I made a mistake," she said. Vanessa shook her head. No. A mistake is spilling wine. Rebecca's eyes dropped to the stain. Vanessa's voice sharpened. You weaponized it. Rebecca began to cry. It did not move the room. Because the room had finally understood something, tears after exposure are not the same as remorse before consequence. Charles tried one last time. Vanessa, listen to me. We can negotiate. Whitmore Capital still has relationships you need. Vanessa looked almost amused. Had. Martin raised his tablet again. The sixth screen changed. Whitmore Capital client notice effective immediately. Executive review interim control appointed Charles Whitmore removed from operational authority. Rebecca Whitmore suspended from public relations and donor access. Rebecca gasped. Charles stumbled one step back. Vanessa looked at him. Your board voted 15 minutes ago. That's impossible. You keep using that word. Charles turned toward the screen, toward the documents, toward the room he had lost. You had no right. Vanessa's face went still. I had every right. I owned the debt. I held the votes. I followed the bylaws. You just never imagined the woman you called symbolic would read the documents better than you. A low, stunned murmur spread. That was the line people would remember. Rebecca whispered, "What happens to us?" Vanessa did not answer immediately. She looked at the ruined dress. At the ballroom. At the screens filled with proof. At Malik. At Simone. At the staff watching from the walls. At every person who had ever been told they did not belong in rooms built with their labor, their money, their silence, their pain. Then she spoke. Rebecca Whitmore, you are banned from all Cole Foundation events, donor committees, and partner leadership spaces effective immediately. Rebecca closed her eyes. Charles Whitmore, you are removed from every advisory role connected to my foundation, my funds, and my portfolio companies. Your conduct will be reviewed by external counsel. If crimes are found, referrals will be made. Charles' jaw clenched. Gerald Price, your board seat is terminated. Your access revoked. Gerald looked like he might faint. Vanessa turned to the event manager. Lydia Marsh, you allowed discriminatory instructions to be issued to staff under your supervision. Your contract is terminated. Your firm will be reviewed. Lydia sobbed quietly. Vanessa's gaze moved back to the crowd. And for everyone else, understand this clearly. Tonight is not revenge. She paused. Revenge is personal. This is structural. That sentence quieted everything. Because it explained the entire night. The wine. The screens. The documents. The witnesses. The delayed reveal. The calm. Vanessa had not come to embarrass Rebecca. She had come to expose a machine. Rebecca had simply pulled the curtain herself. The ballroom doors opened. 2 security supervisors entered, but they did not move toward Vanessa. They moved toward Charles, Rebecca, Gerald, and Lydia. That image alone changed the room. Earlier, everyone had expected security to remove the black woman in the stained dress. Now security waited for her permission. Vanessa gave a single nod. Charles looked furious. Rebecca looked broken. Gerald looked empty. Lydia looked ashamed. One by one, they were escorted away from the center of the ballroom. No pushing. No shouting. Just consequence. As Rebecca passed Vanessa, she whispered, "I really am sorry." Vanessa looked at her. "I hope one day you are. Tonight, you're just caught." Rebecca flinched like she had been slapped. Then she walked on. The ballroom watched her leave through the same doors Vanessa had entered quietly less than an hour before. When the doors closed, no one spoke. The room seemed to understand that something sacred had happened, but not something gentle. It had witnessed a correction. A public reordering. A woman refusing to bleed quietly for the comfort of people who had mistaken access for ownership. Martin approached Vanessa. "Do you want to change before the address?" Vanessa looked down at the wine stain. For the first time, she touched the fabric. Her fingers came away red. "No," she said. Martin nodded. He understood. Vanessa walked to the stage. The room parted again, but now the movement was different. Not fear. Respect. Some people lowered their eyes. Others stood straighter. Malik stood near the front, still wiping tears with the back of his hand. Dr. Simone Avery folded her arms and watched Vanessa like she was watching history decide to speak. Vanessa reached the microphone. The central screen behind her cleared. No documents now. No accusations. Just her name. Vanessa Cole, founder and chairwoman, Cole Equity Foundation. She looked out at the ballroom. The ivory dress caught the light. The wine stain remained visible. She let them see it. "When I was 16, Vanessa began, my mother took me to a scholarship dinner. She had worked 2 shifts to buy me a blue dress. I remember feeling proud. I remember standing in the lobby holding my invitation. And I remember a woman asking me which family I worked for. No one moved. My mother heard it. She did not yell. She did not curse. She simply took my hand and said, 'Walk in anyway.' Vanessa breathed. So I did." Her eyes moved across the room. "I have been walking in anyway ever since." A few people began crying silently. But walking in is not enough anymore. Not when rooms are designed to question some people and welcome others. Not when politeness becomes camouflage for exclusion. Not when institutions use words like fit, tone, optics, and tradition to hide the oldest forms of disrespect. She paused. The Cole Equity Foundation was not built to decorate privilege with charity. It was built to move power. Applause rose. She lifted one hand. It stopped again. Power without accountability becomes performance. Tonight, accountability begins here. The 7th screen displayed a new title. The Cole Equity Accountability Initiative. Vanessa continued. Effective immediately, this foundation will create an independent dignity review board with community authority. Not donor authority. Community authority. Every major event, funding decision, vendor partnership, and leadership appointment will be reviewed for bias patterns. Every complaint will be tracked to resolution. Every dismissed report will be reopened. People leaned forward. We will also establish the Malik Johnson Whistleblower Protection Fund. Malik's eyes widened. A ripple moved through the room. Vanessa looked at him. Because telling the truth should not cost working people their future. The applause came hard now. Malik bent forward, overwhelmed. Vanessa continued over it. And the Dr. Simone Avery Community Health Commitment will receive an additional $20 million tonight, redirected from terminated advisory contracts. Simone covered her face. The ballroom erupted. Not polite applause. Not gala applause. Real sound. The kind that comes from bodies releasing something they did not know they were holding. Vanessa let it rise, then settle. But do not clap too easily, she said. The room quieted. Because justice is not proven by how loudly you applaud after the powerful speak. It is proven by what you risk when the vulnerable are alone. That sentence landed deeply. People shifted. Some uncomfortable. Some transformed. Vanessa leaned closer to the microphone. So I am asking every person in this room one question. Before you knew my name, what did you think I deserved? No one answered. They couldn't. The question was too sharp. Too honest. Vanessa nodded slowly. Sit with that. She stepped back from the microphone. For a moment, it seemed she was finished. Then she returned. One more thing. The room stilled. She looked toward the doors where Rebecca had exited. People often ask why black excellence has to be so calm under attack. Why we do not scream. Why we do not break things. Why we do not perform pain loudly enough for the room to believe it. Her voice softened. The truth is, many of us are tired. Tired of proving credentials. Tired of explaining tone. Tired of being called intimidating when we are precise, angry when we are honest, lucky when we are brilliant, symbolic when we are powerful. A murmur of agreement moved through the room. Vanessa's eyes glistened, but her voice stayed firm. But tonight, let the record show this. I did not need to scream to be heard. I did not need to beg to belong. I did not need to become cruel to defeat cruelty. She looked down at the stain one last time. Then back up. They mistook my silence for shame. A pause. They should have recognized it as evidence. The ballroom exploded. People stood. Dr. Simone Avery stood first. Malik next. Then the servers. Then guests. Then donors who looked humbled, shaken, unsure if they deserved to stand but unable to remain seated. Vanessa did not smile widely. She simply received the moment with the same stillness she had held when the wine hit her dress. Because this was not triumph the way movies often showed it. It was heavier than that. It was repair beginning. It was a door opening after years of being guarded by the wrong people. As applause filled the ballroom, Martin stepped close and whispered, "Press is already outside." Vanessa nodded. "Let them in." He blinked. Now. Now. Minutes later, reporters entered the ballroom expecting scandal. They found a black woman in a stained ivory dress standing beneath her own name, surrounded not by chaos, but by order. The first reporter raised a microphone. "Ms. Cole, can you comment on what happened tonight?" Vanessa looked directly into the camera. "Yes." The room quieted again. "Tonight, a woman poured wine on me because she thought I was powerless. Her father tried to protect a system because he thought it was untouchable. A board member buried complaints because he thought silence was cheaper than accountability." She paused. They were all wrong. Camera shutters clicked. Another reporter asked, "Is this a personal victory?" Vanessa's answer was immediate. No. Personal victory would have been walking away untouched. This is institutional correction. A third reporter called out, "What do you say to people who believe this was staged?" Vanessa looked at the wine stain. Then at the camera. "I wish dignity did not require proof. But since it often does, we brought receipts." A few people laughed softly through tears. The line would travel everywhere by morning. But in that room, it was not a punchline. It was a warning. The next morning, the story was everywhere. Not because Vanessa had chased attention. Because the truth had been ready to breathe. Clips spread across every platform. Rebecca's words. The wine. Vanessa's stillness. The screens. Malik's audio. Charles' removal. The final speech. Millions watched the moment power changed shape in a ballroom built to flatter people who had forgotten what service meant. Some called it brutal. Others called it overdue. But the people who had lived versions of that moment knew exactly what it was. Recognition. In Chicago, a young black founder watched the clip before a pitch meeting and decided not to shrink her voice. In Atlanta, a hotel manager replayed Vanessa's speech and reopened 3 complaints he had been told to ignore. In Oakland, a grandmother sent the video to her granddaughter with one sentence, "Walk in anyway." At Cole Foundation headquarters, the work began before sunrise. Not symbolic work. Real work. Access codes were changed. Contracts frozen. Complaint files reopened. External counsel brought in. Community representatives seated. Staff interviewed. Donor influence maps reviewed. Every system that had allowed Rebecca's attitude to become policy was pulled into daylight. By noon, Whitmore Capital's interim board issued a statement confirming Charles Whitmore's removal pending investigation. By 3, Gerald Price resigned from 2 other boards. By evening, Lydia Marsh's event firm lost for major contracts. And Malik Johnson's email inbox filled with messages from staff all over the city saying the same thing in different words. That happened to me too. Vanessa read some of them alone in her office. Still wearing the dress. She had refused to send it to cleaning. Instead, she placed it in a glass preservation box near the conference room entrance with a small plaque beneath it. Not a stain. A record. When Martin saw it, he said nothing for a long time. Then he smiled. She's going to hate that. Vanessa looked through the glass at the deep red mark. Good. A week later, the foundation held its first public accountability session. No chandeliers. No champagne. No velvet ropes. Just folding chairs, microphones, community members, staff, donors, and a rule posted at the entrance: no title outranks the truth. Dr. Simone Avery spoke about medical deserts and donor theatre. Malik spoke about workers being trained to obey buyers politely. A former assistant from Whitmore Capital testified anonymously about coded language used in donor meetings. A Latina founder described being introduced as passionate while her white male co-founder was introduced as a visionary. A disabled veteran spoke about being seated near exits at every major event for convenience. One by one, the stories came. Vanessa sat onstage and listened. Not as a savior. As someone responsible. When the session ended, a teenage girl approached her. She wore a yellow dress and held a notebook to her chest. "My mom said you're important," the girl said. Vanessa smiled gently. "Your mom sounds generous." The girl looked at the preserved dress behind the lobby glass. "Were you scared?" Vanessa thought about lying. Then chose not to. "Yes." The girl's eyes widened. "But you looked so calm." Vanessa knelt slightly so they were eye level. "Courage does not mean your heart is quiet. It means your feet stay planted anyway." The girl nodded slowly, like she was storing the sentence somewhere safe. Just like Vanessa had once stored her mother's words. "Walk in anyway." 3 months later, the annual Coal Equity Gala returned. Same ballroom. Different room. The donor tables were gone from the center. In their place stood round tables mixed with founders, workers, teachers, nurses, organizers, artists, students, and neighborhood leaders. No private donor circle. No hidden seating hierarchy. No staff instructed to watch people who didn't fit. At the entrance, every guest received the same greeting. "Welcome. We're glad you're here." Malik, now in a tailored navy suit, supervised the guest experience team with calm confidence. Dr. Simone Avery stood near a group of medical students funded by the new commitment. Martin moved quietly through the room, smiling more than usual. Vanessa arrived late. Not because she wanted drama. Because she had spent the afternoon visiting a community clinic opening on the south side, funded by money that once would have disappeared into advisory fees. This time, when she entered the ballroom, no one questioned her. But that was not the victory. The victory was that no one questioned the young woman in sneakers behind her. Or the elderly man with a cane. Or the mother with 2 children. Or the janitor invited as an honored guest because he had worked in that building for 30 years and knew more about who treated people well than any executive ever had. Vanessa walked to the stage. The room quieted. Behind her, the screen displayed a new message. Dignity is not VIP access. It is the floor. Vanessa looked out at the crowd. 1 year could not fix everything. One speech could not undo generations. One ruined dress could not cleanse a system by itself. But truth had entered the room. And this time, it had not left. Vanessa leaned into the microphone. "Last time we gathered here," she said, "some people learned that ownership is not always loud. Tonight, I hope we remember something more important." She paused. Belonging should never depend on being recognized by power. The room held still. Because the person you dismiss may own the building. But even if she doesn't, she still owns her dignity. Applause rose. Vanessa looked toward the preserved dress displayed near the entrance, lit softly behind glass. Then she smiled. Not cold this time. Complete. And for anyone still wondering where people like me belong, she looked directly into the room. We belong wherever our courage takes us. The applause became thunder. Not because a black CEO had humiliated her enemies. Because she had done something far more satisfying. She had taken a room built on performance and turned it into proof. And somewhere beyond the cameras, beyond the headlines, beyond the polished speeches and public statements, a truth settled into the bones of everyone who had watched it happen. Justice does not always arrive shouting. Sometimes it stands still in a stained dress. And lets the whole room reveal itself.